The buildings that shouldn't be here, the tunnels that weren't supposed to exist, the architects who might never have lived. Springfield, Illinois, a city most people drive through without looking twice. But if you stop, if you really look, you'll notice something that doesn't make sense. Right in the heart of the city stands the Illinois State Capitol building, a massive dome of cast iron and limestone, 361 feet tall, taller than the Statue of Liberty, weighing more than 8 million pounds. They tell us it was built between 1868 and 1888 by hand, with no cranes, no electricity, just ropes, horses, and a lot of determination. But there's a problem. There are no verified construction photos. None. You can find portraits of the politicians and photos of men posing after it's done, but not one image showing the dome being assembled. The archives talk about budget delays and winter setbacks, but somehow every column aligns perfectly. Every arch mirrors the next with millimeter precision. Each limestone block was quarried in Joliet, carried nearly 100 miles by rail before rail cranes even existed. And yet, no record of how they lifted the 80-ton dome sections. Even the cost doesn't fit the era. $4.5 million in 1880s money. That's roughly $150 million today, during a time when a mason earned $1.50 a day. So you tell me, did a handful of men in the 1870s really build something that our modern engineers still call impossible without steel? Or did they inherit it? A structure from an older world, dressed up with a new story, a new flag, a new date carved on the cornerstone. They say it was built, but it looks more like it was found. Go 1 hour north to Lincoln, Illinois. At the center of the town stands the Logan County Courthouse, a 1905 classical revival building, according to the plaque. But what the plaque doesn't tell you is that this courthouse has been restored 3 times, and with every restoration, something disappeared. The original copper dome, gone in 1973, replaced by a flat roof for maintenance reasons. The basement sealed off, the stained glass removed, and when they finally rebuilt the dome in 2021, it wasn't copper or steel, it was fiberglass. The local news called it a proud preservation effort. But the dome they saved isn't the one our ancestors saw. It's a replica, a costume. And here's the pattern. Every so-called restoration project across America starts with scaffolding and ends with simplification. Less detail, less depth, less soul. They call it modernization. But what it really looks like is quiet erasure. You don't have to burn a city to rewrite its history. You just need a few renovations, soft irony in voice, because the next generation will never know what used to be there. Only what you tell them replaced it. In 2020, during foundation repairs at the Illinois State Capitol, contractors uncovered something unexpected. Hidden beneath the building, a network of arched limestone tunnels, 12 feet wide, carved smooth, blackened with soot. They aren't on any official blueprints, not from 1868, not from 1888, not from any year. The state called them ventilation shafts, but they don't connect to air systems. They run too deep, too long, and they curve like aqueducts, not ducts. Walk down there, and the air feels different, stale, heavy, ancient. You can still see where fire licked the walls. The old bricks are hand-cut, laid in patterns that match 18th century canal architecture, not 19th century civic buildings. It's as if the Capitol wasn't built on solid ground, but on top of something older, something they never expected to find. The same pattern appears in dozens of cities: New York, Chicago, Seattle, entire levels buried beneath our feet. Maybe that's why they call it foundation work, because they keep finding the foundations of a world that shouldn't exist. Springfield Union Station, completed in 1898, a proud monument of fireproof stone and iron, but it burned 3 times: 1907, 1908, 1909. Each fire erased the same thing: the records, the drawings, the interiors, and every rebuild stripped the structure down, simpler, plainer, emptier. They blamed a pipe, then wiring, then spontaneous combustion. Funny how the most convenient fires always start near archives. Chicago had one in 1871, St. Louis in 1849, Cincinnati, Boston, San Francisco, the same story on repeat. The great fires of the 19th century didn't just burn cities, they burned memory. Brick and stone don't ignite, but stories do. And once they're gone, you can rebuild whatever version you want. They call it tragedy, but it feels more like a cleanup, a reset. Because when the evidence doesn't fit the narrative, fire fixes everything. Every great building has a name attached, a signature to make the story official. But some of those names, they don't add up. George V. Barnett, the architect of St. Louis's old courthouse, is credited with structures completed after his death. E. Haynes, credited for multiple Illinois courthouses, has no birth record, no obituary, no portrait. Don Barber, said to have designed half the East Coast, dies at 53, yet his style keeps appearing for another decade. Try searching them. You'll find the same recycled lines. Prominent architect, prolific designer. His works are too numerous to list. That's not biography. That's filler. It's almost like someone filled the gaps with names that sound credible, to keep the illusion of continuity. No diaries, no construction notes, just perfectly aligned timelines that read more like data entries than lives lived. Maybe these weren't the builders. Maybe they were just the cover stories, the faces assigned to buildings that were already here. Drive across the river into St. Louis, Missouri. There's something strange about this city. It feels old, older than it should. On one side of the downtown square, the Basilica of St. Louis, foundation laid 1831. On the other, the old courthouse, completed 1862. Look closely. Both crowned with domes of copper and stone. Both guarded by griffins and winged creatures, each holding spheres like conductors. We call them ornamentation, but they look more like technology. Those spheres, identical to the finials on cathedrals across Europe. The same geometry appears in ancient Egypt, the missing pyramid capstones, aligned with stars and sun. And just across the river, Cahokia Mounds, a prehistoric city built 1,000 years before Columbus, aligned perfectly with the solstice sunrise. Different names, different stories, same blueprints. What if these aren't coincidences? What if they're fragments of the same civilization, an old world grid we've forgotten how to read? They call them myths, they call them decorations. But maybe they were conductors, the hardware of a lost world. Seattle, Chicago, Oshkosh, Springfield. Everywhere you dig, you find the same thing, a city under the city. In Seattle, the underground tour shows old sidewalks 20 feet below today's street level, buried after the 1889 Great Fire. In Chicago, entire blocks were lifted 4 to 14 feet between 1856 and 1875 to install sewers, and now you can still see doors half buried in brick. In Oshkosh, Wisconsin, old walls were found under Main Street in 1931. stone foundations for unknown buildings. And here, in Springfield, walk around the Capitol Avenue area, and you'll see window arches below the current sidewalk line. Whole floors buried under new pavement. They say it's urban development, but the more you study the pattern, the clearer it gets. We're not building new cities, we're reclaiming old ones. Each foundation is just the roof of what came before. History isn't linear, it's layered, like sediment, like memory. Maybe we didn't start from nothing. Maybe we started from someone else's ruin. Quiet music builds, ambient piano. They tell us we're living in the modern age, but maybe we're just walking on rooftops of a forgotten world, pretending we built it.